The paralegal slid the photograph across the mahogany desk, and I watched my entire world crack open like an egg. There, in glossy 8x10 clarity, was my kitchen. My kitchen. The one I'd scrubbed on my hands and knees every Saturday for 37 years, except it wasn't my kitchen anymore. There was a man I'd never seen before standing at my stove, flipping pancakes. A woman I didn't know was pouring orange juice into my grandmother's crystal glasses. And sitting at my table, the one my husband built with his own hands before the cancer took him, were 3 children eating breakfast like they owned the place, because apparently they did. My lawyer's voice came from somewhere far away. "Mrs. Patterson, I need you to breathe. Can you hear me? Patricia, breathe." But how do you breathe when someone has stolen your entire life? My name is Patricia Ann Patterson, though most people call me Patty. I'm 72 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I knew exactly how my life worked. I thought I understood the rules. I thought that in America, in this country I've called home my entire life, there were systems in place to protect people like me. I was wrong about a lot of things. This is the story of how I almost lost everything, how I found the strength to fight back, and how I learned that sometimes the people who smile the widest are the ones you should fear the most. If you're watching this and you're my age, or if you have parents or grandparents you love, please listen. Because what happened to me is happening to someone right now, in your town, maybe even in your neighborhood. And I'm telling my story because silence is exactly what these people count on. It started the way these things always start, slowly. So slowly you don't even notice you're drowning until the water's over your head. I'd been living alone in my house in Columbus, Ohio for 8 years, ever since Tom passed. It's a modest 3-bedroom ranch, nothing fancy, but it's mine, paid off. Tom made sure of that before he died. "Patty," he said, holding my hand in that hospital bed, "promise me you'll keep the house. Don't let anyone talk you into selling it. It's your security." I promised him, and I meant it. For those 8 years, I did fine. Sure, I had the usual aches and pains. My knee bothered me sometimes. I forgot things occasionally, like we all do, but I managed. I had my routine. Coffee at 6, my programs in the evening, bridge with the girls every Tuesday. I volunteered at the library on Thursdays. I was living my life. Then last March, I fell. It was stupid, really. I was reaching for a serving platter on the top shelf of my kitchen cabinet, the good china I only use for holidays. My foot caught the step stool and down I went, hit my hip hard on the tile floor. The pain was immediate and sharp, like lightning running down my leg. My neighbor Susan found me 3 hours later. I'd managed to drag myself to the phone, but my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't dial. She heard me calling and used her key to get in. The hospital said it was a fractured hip. They did surgery, put in a pin. The doctor was young, maybe 40, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're lucky, Mrs. Patterson," he said. "But at your age, a fall like this is serious. You'll need rehabilitation, and we need to talk about your living situation." That phrase, your living situation. I should have known right then, should have heard the warning bells, but I was on pain medication, exhausted, scared. So I just nodded. That's when Cheryl appeared. Cheryl Morrison introduced herself as a care coordinator from the hospital's social services department. She was probably 50, dressed in a crisp navy suit, her blonde hair pulled back in a perfect bun. She had one of those voices that's sweet on the surface but has steel underneath, the kind of woman who's used to getting her way. "Mrs. Patterson," she said, sitting beside my hospital bed with a clipboard, "I've reviewed your case with the medical team, and we all agree. Going home alone simply isn't safe. You need round-the-clock care, at least for the first few weeks." "I can hire someone," I said, "to come to the house." She shook her head, her expression sympathetic but firm. "That's very expensive and honestly not as effective. You need access to physical therapy, nursing care, proper nutrition. What you need is a short-term stay at a rehabilitation facility, just until you're back on your feet." "I don't know," I said. My hip was throbbing. I couldn't think straight. Let me show you some options. She opened a brochure with glossy photos of smiling, elderly people in a beautiful facility. Meadowbrook Senior Living is one of the finest facilities in the state. Private rooms, gourmet meals, physical therapy on site, activities. Most of our patients only stay 3 to 6 weeks. The photos looked nice, clean, safe. And I was tired. So tired. How much does it cost? That's the beauty of it, Cheryl said, her smile widening. Medicare covers most of it for qualified rehab stays, and you clearly qualify. We just need to fill out some paperwork. She pulled out a stack of documents. I remember looking at them, trying to read through the pain and the medication fog. Power of attorney forms, Medicare applications, admissions agreements for Meadowbrook. This is a lot of paperwork, I said. It's standard procedure, Cheryl assured me. Just sign here, here, and here. Initial these pages. This just gives the facility permission to bill Medicare on your behalf and handle your medical decisions while you're in rehab. Completely routine. I signed. God help me, I signed everything she put in front of me. 2 days later, an ambulance took me to Meadowbrook Senior Living. The photos in the brochure were accurate. I'll give them that. Meadowbrook was beautiful on the outside. A sprawling brick building with manicured lawns, flower gardens, a fountain out front. It looked like a resort. But the moment they wheeled me through those doors, something felt wrong. The woman at the front desk barely looked at me as the EMTs signed me in. She just pushed another clipboard across the counter. Sign here, initial here. Your room is ready. 3rd floor, room 312. Wait, I said. Don't I get a tour? Don't you explain how things work here? Orientation is tomorrow morning at 9, she said, still not looking up. Your nurse will explain everything. My room was small, much smaller than the photos suggested. A narrow bed, a dresser, 1 chair, a bathroom I'd have to share with whoever was in the adjacent room. The window looked out at the parking lot. This was going to be my home for 3 to 6 weeks. A nurse came in around dinner time. Her name tag said Stacy. She was young, tired-looking, moving fast. She handed me a small paper cup with pills. What are these? I asked. Pain management and your other medications, she said. The doctor ordered them. What other medications? I don't take anything except my blood pressure pill. It's all in your chart, hun. You need to take them. I looked at the pills. 5 of them. I didn't recognize any of them except the small pink one that was probably my blood pressure medication. I'd like to speak to the doctor, I said. Stacy sighed. The doctor does rounds once a week. You can ask him then. Now please take your pills so I can finish my rounds. Something in her tone made me nervous, but I was in pain and she was the nurse, so I took them. Big mistake. The next morning, I woke up feeling like my brain was wrapped in cotton. Everything was fuzzy. My thoughts moved like honey. I tried to get out of bed for physical therapy, but my legs didn't want to work right. That's normal, Stacy said when I mentioned it. You're recovering from major surgery. Your body needs rest. But it didn't feel like rest. It felt like something else. The physical therapy sessions were brief and ineffective. 20 minutes on a mat doing gentle leg lifts with a therapist who was simultaneously helping 2 other patients. The therapist, Mark, was nice enough, but overworked. You're doing great, Patricia, he'd say. But I wasn't doing great. I was getting weaker, not stronger. Meals arrived on trays 3 times a day. Lukewarm food that all tasted the same. Institutional. I ate because I had to, but I had no appetite. The medications made me nauseated. The activities they'd promised, arts and crafts in a room with no supplies, a TV room where the same movie played on repeat, bingo once a week if you could stay awake long enough, and the pills. They kept giving me pills. By the end of the first week, I could barely keep my eyes open past 2 in the afternoon. My thoughts were foggy. I couldn't remember what day it was. When Susan came to visit, I could see the concern in her eyes. Patty, are you all right? You don't seem like yourself. I'm fine, I said, but even I could hear how slurred my words were. Just tired. After she left, I sat in my room and tried to think clearly. Something was very wrong. This wasn't rehab. This wasn't helping me get better. I was getting worse. That night, I didn't take the pills. I held them under my tongue and spit them out when Stacy left. The next morning, my head was clearer. Not perfect, but clearer. And with that clarity came a realization that made my blood run cold. They weren't trying to help me. They were trying to keep me docile. I started paying attention, really paying attention. The staff whispered in corners. They watched certain patients more closely than others. The ones who asked too many questions. The ones who tried to leave. I overheard a conversation between two nurses at the medication station outside my room. "Is Patterson on the transfer list?" "Yeah, next month probably. She's not complaining much." "What about her house?" "Already handled. Morrison took care of it." Morrison. Cheryl Morrison. The care coordinator from the hospital. My hands started shaking. What did they mean, already handled? What did my house have to do with anything? I had to get out. Now. I spent the next 24 hours planning. I stopped taking all the pills, spitting them out when the nurses weren't looking. I started walking the halls during the night shift when there was only one nurse on duty, building my strength back. I called Susan from the phone in the activity room when no one was around. "I need you to do something for me," I said quietly. "Don't ask questions. Can you pick me up tomorrow afternoon at 2? "Patty, what's going on?" "Please, Susan, I need to leave this place. Will you help me?" There was a pause. Then, "I'll be there." The next morning, I told the nurse I wasn't feeling well and wanted to rest in my room. I packed the few belongings I had in a small bag. I put on my street clothes. At 1:45, I walked slowly down the hallway toward the elevator. My hip ached, but adrenaline pushed me forward. "Mrs. Patterson?" A nurse I didn't recognize called out. "Where are you going?" "Just getting some air," I said, not stopping. "You need to sign out if you're leaving the floor." "I'll be right back." I got in the elevator, pushed the button for the ground floor. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. The lobby was busy with visitors. I walked as normally as I could toward the front door. Any second, I expected someone to stop me, to grab my arm, to tell me I couldn't leave. But no one did. Susan's car was waiting at the curb. I got in and she pulled away immediately. "Patty, what the hell is going on?" "Take me home," I said. "Please, just take me home." When Susan pulled into my driveway, I felt a wave of relief. My house, my beautiful, familiar house, I was home. But the relief lasted only until I tried my key. It didn't work. I tried again. The key slid into the lock but wouldn't turn, like someone had changed it. "That's strange," Susan said. "Maybe it's stuck?" But I knew. Deep in my gut, I knew something was terribly wrong. I looked through the front window. Everything looked the same. My furniture, my curtains. But something felt off. "Help me round back," I said. The back door was locked too, but the kitchen window, the one with the broken latch I'd been meaning to fix, opened when I pushed it. I climbed through, Susan helping me. My hips screamed in protest, but I didn't care. Inside, the house was different. Small things. A coffee mug in the sink I didn't recognize. A jacket on the coat rack that wasn't mine. The thermostat set to a temperature I never used. I went to the living room. My photo albums were gone from the bookshelf. The mail on the side table wasn't addressed to me. Someone was living in my house. Susan wanted to call the police, but I stopped her. And tell them what? That someone's living in my house? They'll ask for proof that it's my house, proof I didn't give them permission, and right now I don't know what papers I signed at that hospital. My hands were shaking. Susan made me sit down, made me tea in my own kitchen with mugs that weren't mine. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I need a lawyer," I said. "A good one." Susan called her son, who's an accountant. He recommended Martin Keller, an attorney who specialized in elder law and fraud cases. I called his office that afternoon. His receptionist said he was booked for 3 weeks. "Tell him it's an emergency," I said. "Tell him someone stole my house while I was in a nursing facility." She put me on hold. 2 minutes later, she came back. "Mr. Keller can see you tomorrow morning at 9. Martin Keller was about 60, with gray hair and sharp eyes that didn't miss anything. His office was cluttered with file boxes and law books, but somehow it felt organized, purposeful. I told him everything: the fall, the hospital, Cheryl Morrison, the papers I signed, Meadowbrook, the medications, the escape, coming home to find my locks changed. He listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and looked at me for a long moment. "Mrs. Patterson, do you know what guardianship fraud is?" I shook my head. "It's when someone uses the legal system to take control of an elderly person's assets by having themselves appointed as guardian, claiming the person is incapacitated. It's one of the fastest growing forms of elder abuse in the country, and based on what you've told me, I think that's what's happening to you." The room spun. "But I'm not incapacitated. I'm sitting right here. I'm talking to you." "I know that. But somewhere in that paperwork you signed, I'm guessing there's a document giving someone power of attorney over your affairs. Maybe Cheryl Morrison. Maybe someone at the facility. And once they have that, they can do a lot of damage very quickly. Like rent out my house?" "Exactly. They can access your bank accounts, sell your property, make medical decisions for you, all perfectly legal if they have the right documents with your signature." I felt sick. "What do I do?" "First, we get copies of everything you signed, every document. I'll subpoena the hospital and the facility if I have to. Second, we file a petition to revoke any powers of attorney you may have granted. Third, we investigate who's living in your house and under what authority. And fourth," his expression hardened, "we figure out who's behind this and we make them pay." "How long will all this take?" "Weeks, maybe months. These cases are complicated." "I don't have months," I said. "I don't even know where I'm going to sleep tonight." "You can't stay in your house?" "Someone changed my locks." He thought for a moment, then picked up his phone. "Diane, I need you to file an emergency injunction. Today. Patricia Patterson versus... Who owns the deed to your house? Mrs. Patterson?" "I do. It's paid off. In my name." "Then we're filing against anyone claiming rights to the property. We're asking the court for immediate access for Mrs. Patterson to her own home. Tell Judge Morrison we need a hearing today if possible." He hung up, looked at me. "Go back to your house. Don't go inside, but wait there. I'm going to have the police meet you with a locksmith. If anyone tries to stop you from entering your own home, call me immediately." "What about payment?" I asked. "I don't have much money readily available if they've been accessing my accounts." "We'll worry about that later. Right now, we have work to do." Martin Keller was as good as his word. By 3 that afternoon, I was back in my house with new locks, courtesy of a locksmith and a police escort. The officers took a report about the unauthorized lock change, though they were careful to say it might be a civil matter. The people living there had cleared out fast, leaving behind only the basics. But they'd left enough. Over the next week, Martin's investigator, a former FBI agent named Raymond, went through everything with a fine-tooth comb: receipts, bills, mail. And what he found made my blood boil. My house had been listed on a short-term rental website for $800 a week. It had been rented out continuously for the past 6 weeks. 12 different families had stayed there. The rental income was going into a bank account I'd never opened under my name, but with Cheryl Morrison listed as co-owner with right of survivorship. Martin subpoenaed my bank records. Over $4,800 had been withdrawn from my savings account in the past 6 weeks. Small amounts, $700 here, $900 there. Never enough to trigger automatic fraud alerts. The paper trail led back to Meadowbrook Senior Living, to Cheryl Morrison, and to a man named David Brennan who was listed as Meadowbrook's Director of Patient Services. But the real smoking gun came when Raymond pulled the documents I'd signed at the hospital. Buried in the stack of Medicare forms and facility agreements was a power of attorney document, giving Cheryl Morrison complete control over my financial and medical decisions. It was dated the day I was in the hospital, still groggy from surgery and pain medication. "This is textbook fraud," Martin said, spreading the documents across his conference table. "You were not in a position to understand what you were signing. You were under the influence of medication. You didn't have independent legal counsel. This document is going to be very easy to invalidate." "But I still signed it," I said. "Under duress. That matters." He pulled out another document. "And this one is even worse. It's a lease agreement for your house signed by Cheryl Morrison using her power of attorney on your behalf. She leased your house to herself for $1 per year, then sublet it for profit. That's not just fraud, Patricia. That's theft." The investigation widened. Raymond discovered that this wasn't an isolated incident. Meadowbrook Senior Living had been the subject of multiple complaints to the state health department. Families reported that their loved ones were over-medicated, that they were pressured to sign over power of attorney, that their assets were being drained. But nothing had been done. The complaints were investigated and dismissed. No violations found. "Someone's protecting them," Raymond said. "Meadowbrook has connections, political contributions to the right people, a board of directors that includes a state senator and a former judge. This is going to be a fight." "I don't care," I said. "I want them stopped. Not just for me, for everyone they've done this to." Martin looked at me with something like respect. "Then we're going to need to go public. Are you ready for that?" I thought about all those other patients at Meadowbrook, the ones who shuffled through the halls in their medication fog, the ones whose families probably had no idea what was being done to them. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." Martin filed a lawsuit against Cheryl Morrison, David Brennan, Meadowbrook Senior Living, and the hospital that had employed Morrison. The complaint was 37 pages long and detailed everything: fraud, elder abuse, theft, conspiracy. But more importantly, he sent a copy to every news outlet in Columbus. The story broke 3 days later. Local woman escapes facility, discovers house was being rented. The reporter, a young woman named Jennifer, interviewed me in my living room. I showed her the documents. I showed her the rental listings. I told her about the medications, the fog, the whispered conversations. The story went viral. Suddenly, everyone wanted to talk. Other families came forward with similar stories. A son whose mother's jewelry disappeared while she was at Meadowbrook. A daughter who couldn't understand why her father needed to be on so many medications. A woman who checked her mother out of Meadowbrook after 2 weeks and found unexplained charges on her mother's credit cards. The pattern was clear. The scale was staggering. The state attorney general announced an investigation. The health department finally did a surprise inspection of Meadowbrook. The board of directors called an emergency meeting, and Cheryl Morrison disappeared. Not literally. She hired a lawyer, an expensive one from Cleveland who specialized in defending fraud cases. But she stopped coming to work, stopped answering calls, became a ghost. The deposition was held in Martin's conference room. Cheryl sat across from me for the first time since the hospital. She was still perfectly put together, still had that controlled smile. Martin didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Ms. Morrison, did you have Patricia Patterson sign a power of attorney document while she was recovering from hip surgery and under the influence of pain medication?" "I don't recall the specific circumstances." "You don't recall? You were her care coordinator. You visited her specifically to discuss her discharge." "I meet with many patients." "Did you use the power of attorney Mrs. Patterson signed to lease her house to yourself?" Her lawyer objected. "You don't have to answer that." But I saw it in her eyes. Just for a second. Guilt. Or maybe fear. "Ms. Morrison," Martin continued, "how many other patients have signed power of attorney documents while under your care?" "I don't have that information." "Really? Because the state attorney general's office has subpoenaed your employment records. They've found 47 similar cases in the past 3 years. 47 elderly patients who signed over power of attorney while recovering from medical procedures. 47 patients whose assets were subsequently depleted or misappropriated. Would you like to revise your answer?" Her lawyer whispered something to her. She shook her head. No comment. But it didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. The case never went to trial. 3 weeks before the scheduled court date, Meadowbrook's attorneys approached Martin with a settlement offer: full restitution of all my funds plus damages, an admission that they had failed in their duty of care, the immediate resignation of David Brennan and the termination of their contract with Cheryl Morrison, and a fund to compensate the other victims. "It's a good offer," Martin said, "but it's your decision." I thought about it, about standing up in court and telling my story, about making them admit publicly what they'd done. But I also thought about the other victims, the ones who were older than me, more vulnerable, the ones who needed help now, not after months of litigation. "I'll take it," I said. "On one condition. I want a written apology, not from their lawyers, from Cheryl Morrison herself, admitting what she did." Martin smiled. "I'll make it happen." It took another week of negotiation, but he did. The apology arrived by certified mail, one single page, with Cheryl Morrison's signature at the bottom. "Dear Mrs. Patterson, I apologize for the harm I caused you. My actions were wrong. I took advantage of your vulnerable state and betrayed the trust you placed in me. I am sorry." It wasn't enough. Words on paper can never undo what was done. But it was something. The settlement was finalized on a Tuesday morning. Martin called me with the news. "It's over," he said. "The money will be in your account by Friday. Meadowbrook is under new management. Morrison will never work in elder care again. She's also facing criminal charges. The Attorney General isn't dropping those." I should have felt triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. I thanked Martin, paid his bill, which he'd reduced considerably because, as he said, some cases need to be fought regardless of profit. And then I sat in my living room in my house that was finally, truly mine again, and cried. Not tears of sadness, tears of relief, of gratitude, of rage at what had almost been taken from me. That was 6 months ago. I'm still in my house. Susan checks on me daily, but I'm managing. My hip healed properly once I got real physical therapy. I'm back to my routines. Bridge on Tuesdays, library on Thursdays, coffee at 6 every morning. The criminal case against Cheryl Morrison is ongoing. I'll testify when they need me to. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm telling this story because I need you to understand something. This isn't rare. This isn't unusual. This is happening everywhere to people just like me. People who trust the system, who sign papers because they think they should, who don't question authority because they were raised not to. If you have parents or grandparents, talk to them. Make sure they understand that they should never sign anything in a hospital without having someone they trust review it first. Make sure they know it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to say no. It's okay to leave. And if you're my age watching this, please remember, being polite can cost you everything. Being difficult might just save your life. They said I should be grateful they put me in a nice facility, but I'm grateful for something else entirely. I'm grateful I had the strength to walk out. I'm grateful for Susan, who didn't ask questions when I needed help. I'm grateful for Martin Keller, who believed me and fought for me. I'm grateful for my stubborn streak, the one my mother always said would get me in trouble. Because that stubborn streak saved everything I had. My name is Patricia Patterson. I'm 72 years old. This is my house. This is my life. And I'm not going anywhere.